Good evening, everyone. We're just going to hold on a few minutes while most of the participants log on. As you know, there's 500 participants that are able to log on, and currently we're sitting at 192. So I'll give it a minute or so until everybody can get on. Okay. All right, I think we're going to get started. Some people may still be, logging on themselves. So good evening. Thank you so much for participating in this very important event. As we all know, the school district's reopening plan is something that's, new to all of us, and something that, of course, we're sure, you have many concerns. And, quite frankly, we have just as many concerns. So without further ado, let me share my screen so I can start with the presentation. Oh, Mrs. Sapero, I think I need rights to share my presentation. Okay. All right, so let's get started. So welcome and good evening. The events of the past several months have had a dramatic impact on education as we know it. There really has never been so much uncertainty. As we prepare for school reopening in the fall, we acknowledge that conditions for learning involve social, emotional, and environmental factors that can impact educator capacity to teach and student capacity to learn, including standards for maintaining health and safe school conditions. We also recognize that the impact social isolation has had on both educators and students alike. It is my hope that today's presentation will begin to answer some of your questions and concerns. Some notes for today. Clearly, with over 500 participants, we won't be able to allow everyone to speak, so we're going to have to utilize the chat feature. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a chat feature where you can enter your questions. We ask our parents to enter questions both in English and Spanish, as we do have somebody that will be able to translate those questions for us and the public. We will do the best to answer all of your questions, but again, with over 500 participants, we just may not be able to do that. It just may not be possible. As of right now, we realize that this meeting may take a couple of hours, but I'll tell you in advance that, we're gonna probably have to put a hard stop at 10 o'clock just because that would be a 3-hour meeting. That might be a little excessive. We will do the best we can to answer all questions, but we do ask that that questions are not repeated. This way we could answer the maximum number of questions. We don't want to answer questions over and over again, to be respectful of everybody's time. We also hope that some of the questions will be asked will be answered that were part of the presentation. So please, try not to ask questions that were already part of the presentation. Finally, this meeting, of course, is being recorded, and it will be made available for the public to review at any time. And you can go back and review, to maybe get some questions answered that you may have missed. All questions are good questions. We ask that you're respectful of others. And the focus of today's meeting is on September reopening and the phase 1 of our district plan. Please understand that this district plan is an overarching global plan. There might be some specific questions that are building related. So clearly, all of our schools will be hosting their own meetings, when they're ready to do so. So nothing is more important to us than the health and safety of our students and staff. To that end, we are committed to taking all necessary health and safety precautions to make sure that students and staff are safe during instruction. Please note the following. Schools will open for in-person instruction in September in some capacity as required by the governor. Parents have the option of choosing a full remote option. The district does not have the authority to keep schools closed. All plans are subject to the revision based on public health trends and guidelines from the governor and the New Jersey Department of Education. Restart Committee. So a Restart Committee has been established to develop the board's Restart and Recovery Plan. The Restart Committee reflects the diversity of the school community, including school district and school level administrators, members of the Board of Education, the president and officers of the local education association, and a diverse set of content experts, educators, parents, students, the local health department, fire department, police department, municipal and county government. One of the main goals of the Restart Committee is to ensure that the provisions mark anticipated minimum standards as outlined in the guidance from the New Jersey Department of Education have been incorporated into the board's plan and corresponding protocols as applicable. The Restart Committee develops subcommittees to focus on both student learning and logistics. Pandemic response teams. The Restart Committee works closely with the school pandemic response teams to help address policies and procedures of the board's plan. Each school-based pandemic response team has been established to centralize, expedite, and implement COVID-19 related decision-making. Each school's team's principal will serve as the liaison that reports to district level administrators to ensure coordinated actions across the district. Each pandemic response team includes a cross-section of administrators, teachers, staff, and parents that is reflective of the community's racial diversity. The Road Back, Restart, and Recovery. So this is the name of the guidance that was delivered to all superintendents by the New Jersey Department of Education. That guidance was released on June 26th. On July 24th, the governor announced that, and the Department of Education announced that parents would be allowed to choose an all remote option. Of course, we have today's meeting, which is taking place, which is our parent forum. And then all reopening plans are due to the Department of Education tomorrow, July 31st. Reopening will take place in phases. Phase 1 is September 1st through October 16th. Phase 2, October 19th through the 27th of November. And phase 3 will be November 30th through January 15th. Using phases will help us gradually return and assess each phase as we one day return to normal in the future. 77% of Bergen County school districts are utilizing the phased-in approach. The phase-out component will also help us in the event that we need to scale back our plan due to positive COVID-19 cases within our district, county, or a statewide order. Our current plans include being ready to implement full remote learning upon a health department-initiated closing. Prevention measures. According to the CDC, the best way to prevent illness is to avoid being exposed to the virus. Preventative measures include hand washing, covering your mouth and nose with a cloth face cover. Below are actions that are being taken to help with preventative measures. Face coverings are among the most important measures available to contain the spread of COVID-19. We will require all students and staff to wear face coverings that adequately cover both their nose and mouth, with accommodations being made for those who cannot due to certain medical and/or instructional needs in accordance with all applicable laws and regulations. Staff and students are expected to provide their own face coverings, and however, in the event of emergency or hardship, face coverings can be provided by the school district. There will be signs to alert personnel, students, and all visitors to wear face coverings upon entering. This is one of my favorite slides because it clearly indicates the risk level that are of exposure from wearing masks or face coverings versus not wearing masks. I'll give you a second just to review the slide if you've never seen this image before. Clearly, our lowest risk is when everyone wears face coverings. Prevention measures continued. Visitors will only be allowed when deemed necessary by the building principal, and all visitors will be screened before entering the building. But for the most part, there really will be no visitors allowed. when we say visitors will be allowed, there might be an emergency situation where, maybe the boiler is malfunctioning and we need the mechanic to come in to address the boiler issue. But we will not be allowing visitors into the school, again, to minimize the exposure. Signage will be placed throughout the buildings to remind individuals to sanitize and hand wash. Staff and students will be trained on proper hand washing techniques. Students and staff shall wash their hands frequently upon entering the building, after they utilize the restroom, blow their nose, cough, sneeze, before and after eating, prior to dismissal, and every time they enter a different classroom/workspace. If hand washing cannot be accomplished, all staff and students shall utilize the district providing hand sanitizing stations that contain at least 60% ethyl alcohol that have been placed strategically in all classrooms, high population areas to prevent congregating, such as offices, entrances and exits, restrooms, and cafeteria. Noncompliance. Students who refuse to comply with established face covering and hand washing guidelines will be educated by teachers about the importance of face coverings and proper hand washing in limiting the spread of COVID-19. If refusal continues, the student shall be addressed by school monitors, social workers, counselors, and/or administrators with interventions to obtain compliance. Continued noncompliance, however, may subject the student to follow a full instructional model. Health and safety expectations. As mentioned before, students and staff will be required to wear face coverings and wash hands frequently and practice social distancing. Hand sanitizing stations will be placed throughout the building. Social distance footprints and signage will be installed on hallway floors. Wherever possible, schools will be creating one-way hallways and stairwells. We will be installing sneeze guard as those plastic barriers wherever appropriate, and air filters with MERV rating between 11 and 13 for all ventilation equipment will be checked monthly and replaced as required. After students arrive, all interior doors, handles, will be sanitized, as well as frequently touched areas such as light switches, stair rails, doorknobs, computer monitors, keyboards and mice, whiteboards, water fountains. Bathrooms will be periodically closed, and sinks, faucets, dispensers, and related surfaces, and all bathroom commodes will be sanitized. If classrooms are empty during the instructional day, custodians will enter and wipe down surfaces/desks with disposable towels. All students and staff desks will be sprayed with disinfectant at once, then wiped down again with disposable towels, and then disposed of. After the building is completed, the cycle will be repeated again on an ongoing basis. So in other words, the cleaning and sanitizing will never stop. Screening procedures. Students, staff, and any visitors that are entering the building will be screened prior to entry using both an online self-screening tool and at verification stations at designated entrances strategically chosen to limit large group gatherings and the amount of interaction between students and cohorts. The district is purchasing a computer software program, which will be used for daily screening of students, with parents being asked to answer the screening questions about their children and certify that their children are symptom-free. In order to limit students waiting outside upon entry, we are asking each parent to ensure that the screening is completed prior to the child coming to school. After consulting with our local health department and school physician, it was determined that temperature checks are not an effective screening tool and hence will not be part of our screening protocol at the school. Phase 1 summary. So September 1st through October 16th. We have proposed front-loading our professional days, so that we can conduct trainings for the first week of school for our staff. The first several days, we plan to review safety routines and protocols with staff and students. Schedules for all students will be as follows during phase 1. Students will follow a hybrid A-B rotating day schedule. A days will be on Mondays and Thursdays, while B days will be on Tuesdays and Fridays. Wednesdays will be designated as an A or B day. More on that later. In-person instruction will be from 8:30 to 12:30 p.m., with virtual instruction being held in the afternoons. Reduced capacity, a maximum of 50% of students in the school each day. Meals, breakfast and lunch will be provided to students on in-person days and on virtual days for those families who qualify for assistance. Breakfast will be prepackaged and eaten in the classroom, while prepackaged lunches will be delivered to the classroom for grab and go upon dismissal. Additional details, as mentioned before, we'll be following an A-B rotating schedule to ensure that social distancing rules are followed. For example, a class roster of 20 students will be split into two cohorts. Cohort A, for example, would have 10 students who would attend school on A days for in-person instruction, while cohort B would attend would attend virtually. On B days, of course, the reverse would take place. All efforts will be made to ensure that siblings attending in-person classes in multiple buildings will be assigned to the same cohort rotation. However, I do stress that we will strive to make sure that that happens. In some cases, it just may not be possible. Special education programming will be based on each child's IEP. Meal service will continue for families that qualify for assistance on virtual days. Classrooms will be set up with desks 6 feet apart or seats 6 feet apart. If this is not possible, of course, students will be required to wear masks, which is a recommendation if social distancing cannot be achieved. Desks will all face in the same direction as recommended by the New Jersey Department of Education, and students will not have access to lockers in the hallway. These are the two learning models. Of course, we've already discussed the in-person/virtual hybrid A-B rotating schedule. And then secondly, there will be a full-time remote option. A student participating in the board's full-time remote learning option will be afforded the same quality and scope of instruction and other educational services as any other student otherwise participating in district programs. For example, students participating in a hybrid model. So by now you all received, whether through Genesis or in a hard copy in the mail, a FERPA consent form. Now, both learning models will utilize video conferencing to enhance the quality of instruction by allowing for real-time discussion and feedback from classroom teachers and students, as well as to meet students' social emotional needs while remote. FERPA stands for Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. This act protects the privacy of student records. Pursuant to the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, the written consent of a parent or eligible student is required before the education records of a student or personally identifiable information contained therein may be disclosed to a third party. The key words for us now is that personally identifiable information. Since the use of video conferencing may disclose personally identifiable information or other education records that may be created either intentionally or unintentionally while your child participates in virtual instruction, we ask that you sign the consent form. We will not intentionally disclose any student information. Here's an example of an unintentional violation. So while in video conferencing, a student responds to a question and an external member of the classroom community, such as a parent or caretaker, hears that classroom discussion. Since personally identifiable information may have been disclosed, this could be considered a violation of FERPA. So we understand that neither of these learning models are ideal, as there is no substitute for full-time in-person instruction. However, we do need you to choose. In order for us to create the most efficient schedule for our students and staff, it is important for us to know the exact number of students that will attend schools in September for in-person instruction as soon as possible. So please fill out that form when you have a moment. As a parent, what are my next steps or options? Well, first, you can opt to send your child to school during phase 1 or select the all remote option. Secondly, you need to complete the form that was sent home. This is necessary for us to plan for successful reopening. If you opt to attend in person, you can opt out at any time to go full-time remote if you'd like. However, if you opt to go full-time remote for phase 1, you will only be allowed to opt in for in-person instruction beginning on October 19th, 2020. However, your building principal needs to be notified in writing by September 30th. And again, this is for planning purposes. The building principals clearly need to know how many students are in their classrooms. If more parents that chose a full-time remote option decide to come back in, Obviously, that's going to impact a principal's schedule, so they will need some time to coordinate that. So once again, once a parent chooses a full-time remote option, they will be allowed to come back in if they change their minds, but they will not be able to do so until October 19th. And most importantly, they would need to they would need to make that request in writing to their principal by September 30th. The next few slides will contain some of the frequently asked questions that myself or some of my administrators have received either in emails or phone calls. So we figured we'd try to answer some of them in advance. What happens if my child falls into a high-risk category? For our high-risk students, we are offering a virtual learning program. This virtual learning option is designed for families that are unable to send their children into school buildings due to family health concerns. This could include a medically fragile or vulnerable children, medically fragile or vulnerable family members at home, related mental health conditions, or other medical issues. What about transportation safety protocols? All students riding on buses, whether contracted or district-owned, shall be required to observe the district's face covering and social distance guidelines and conduct regulations or risk loss of the privilege of such transportation. The district or contracted transportation vendors shall properly clean and sanitize buses between runs. A daily operations guideline includes a wipe down routine prior to and following each route, screening of students prior to boarding the buses, verifying students are wearing masks, observing perceptible signs of illness, and plexiglass or other Department of Transportation approved barriers shall be installed to separate the driver from persons entering or exiting the bus. What happens if a student or staff member exhibits symptoms of COVID-19 while on school property? If a student exhibits symptoms while on school property, the student should remain masked and adhere to strict physical distancing. Students will be respectfully escorted to the designated isolation space until his or her parent or guardian can pick him or her up to go home. Face coverings will be required while in the isolation space, as well as traveling in and exiting the building, unless doing so would inhibit the individual's health. Cleaning procedures will be followed as appropriate. If an employee becomes symptomatic while at work, the employee should promptly inform the school nurse and await guidance. What happens with a positive or presumptive COVID-19 case? When a student or staff member tests positive for COVID-19, the local health department will be notified as they are responsible for contact tracing. The school does not have to close unless instructed to do so by the local health department. The New Jersey Department of Education recommends closing off the area used by an infected person before cleaning and disinfecting. The New Jersey Department of Education also recommends that a 24-hour waiting period should be implemented before cleaning and disinfecting. If it is not feasible to wait 24 hours, then it is recommended that outside doors and windows are opened to increase air circulation in the area. Cleaning staff shall clean and disinfect all areas, offices, bathrooms, and common areas that were used by the ill persons, focusing especially on frequently touched surfaces. As additional guidance becomes available, we will follow that guidance to ensure the safety and health of our students and staff. What about meals? We talked about this before. Meals will be delivered to the classroom. Breakfast and lunch will be provided. Of course, during phase one, there's a 12:30 dismissal for students. So the students will not be eating lunch in the classroom. They will be taking their lunches home. However, when full day instruction resumes, breakfast will continue to be prepackaged and eaten in the classroom, while lunches will still be prepackaged and eaten at school, in the classroom, cafeteria, gymnasium, outdoor space, weather permitting, and/or other large spaces as determined by the school administration in order to maintain social distancing. Meal service staff, of course, they have to follow the same protocols for cleaning and social distancing and face coverings. So the serving staff, which is will be our district's contracted vendor, Mashios, they will be providing isolated workspaces for each of the employees to prepare meals, an isolated personal storage area for each employee, personal protective equipment for each employee, including the ones recommended by the CDC, Department of Health, and other governmental agencies, but not limited to shoe and hair coverings, plastic barriers when serving students and staff, And at this point, we're not really serving students and staff yet the proper right to know training on cleaning and disinfecting, sanitization of food packaging, serving stations, and the cleanliness of any utensils, plates, and cookware that may be used. And in all cases, they will be maintaining proper airflow and sense temperatures while wearing masks. What about recess and phys ed? The district is beginning the school year with an abbreviated schedule, so hence no recess. When schools are open for full day instruction, recess will be staggered in all 4 elementary schools as well as the middle school to allow for disinfecting any equipment that is in use. Preschool students will participate in gross motor activities daily. Equipment will be cleaned between uses, and stations will be utilized to ensure that students do not touch equipment prior to being cleaned. Tricycles will not be used during the abbreviated schedule, and students will be assigned a personal helmet that will not be used by other students. During the abbreviated schedule days, locker rooms in the middle school and high school will be closed, and physical education classes will be held virtually. The district will evaluate when it is safe to begin in-person physical education classes with a plan to begin when full day instruction starts. These classes will take place outside whenever possible, and students will be required to socially distance. Activities will be modified so as to not include contact sports and equipment that will be sanitized between groups. What about field trips, extracurricular activities, and the use of facilities outside of school hours? Until further notice, field trips outside of school will not be allowed. However, virtual field trips that are properly planned and integrated with the curriculum will be approved. Virtual field trips may play an important role to supplement and enrich classroom instruction. Extracurricular activities shall adhere to all applicable social distancing requirements and hygiene protocols that occur during the regular school day. All requests for use of facilities by external community organizations will be subject to follow district guidance on health and safety protocols and adhere to the demands in district policy 7510 use of school facilities. With the exception of the aftercare services right now currently offered by YMCA, most requests for access, if not all, to indoor facilities will be denied during the health emergency. When we speak to use of facility requests, I'll give you a quick example. We do have to allow for some and not in the buildings, but my example is just recently, the health department reached out to us to utilize the high school's parking lot to be able to conduct, COVID testing. So clearly, if requests like those come in, those are things that we allow. They do require facilities use approval. So hence, some use of facilities will be approved, but anything inside the buildings outside of the aftercare programs will not be. What about academic, social, and behavioral supports? The district will continue to provide multi-tiered systems of supports to students, which include intervention, enrichment, and additional support during the school day, before and or after school. Students that are identified and contacted by teachers, school nurses, school counselors, and other staff members to provide resources and referrals to students, parents, and families based on their needs. This outreach includes Zoom calls, telephone contact, and sometimes socially distanced home visits by our school resource officers. Check-ins for our vulnerable students and families will continue to ensure access to food, healthcare, and mental health support, including grief counseling. What about athletics? Of course, there's some hyperlinks here with a few hyperlinks embedded within those. Currently, we will be following all of the guidelines with regards to sports that are set forth by the New Jersey State Scholastic and the NJSIAA. You get the point. So the bottom line is we will follow all the rules for athletics that are incumbent to us by the New Jersey SAIA, and we will be following those guidelines. Currently, they've opened up for some practices. They have a tentative schedule that's going to start in October to resume games, but again, a lot of that is dependent upon the direction of this health pandemic. We will follow the guidance accordingly. What does full-time remote learning look like? At both the middle and the high school, current plans include students being able to attend class via live streaming on a daily basis. At the elementary level, virtual academy instructors will be assigned to a grade level to instruct the students whose parents had chosen the all virtual option. In order to better support staff and students, additional online resources were purchased to ensure that students receive engaging instruction and have access to a variety of resources. To ensure collaboration, teachers will be provided with common planning time so that constant communication is occurring and that any transitions from virtual to in-person or vice versa would be smooth. Students will see a live teacher virtually each day. The time of each live session will vary. When will parents be notified of their designated day and classroom teacher? This will occur in 2 stages. Your designated group, A or B, will be relayed to you by your building principal as soon as possible, but no later than August 14th. You will be notified of your classroom teachers by the end of August. How will attendance be taken? Whether you choose an all remote or hybrid option, attendance will be taken on a daily basis. According to the New Jersey Department of Education, all students can be recorded as present for applicable days unless the district knowingly determines a student was not participating in any such instruction, in which case they must be recorded as absent. So that concludes the presentation. We're going to open up some questions. I have 2 moderators that are moderating those questions. One of them is Melissa Sanzari-Stevens, and the other is Diana Bermudez for those questions that may come to us in Spanish. At the end of the presentation, I'll put this slide back up. Any questions, if we run out of time, any questions can be either emailed to Ms. Sanzari-Stevens, and she will make sure that it gets directed to the appropriate person. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we'll open up for questions.
Okay. The first question is, how is a hardship being determined to provide masks to those in need?
So just like anything else, those are sensitive topics. I would say, any family that feels they have a hardship should contact the building principal directly, and we will more than happily accommodate those requests.
Are we outsourcing the custodians?
Right now, there's no plans to outsource custodians.
The next question is for Dr. Galliana. Will middle school students be monitored while washing their hands in the bathroom to avoid socializing?
Hi, so the plan is to have hallway monitors, and we are receiving stickers like in the store where you put outside the bathroom so the kids can socially distance at 6 feet. And then we'll monitor as kids go in and come out, and yes, we'll be asking and making sure that they wash their hands. Were you able to hear me?
Yes, I just stopped your video because it was coming in a little bit blurry. So I just stopped it so you would come through clearer.
Okay. How'd I do? Okay, good. Thank you.
I just wanted to note that I see people raising their hands. If you could just type your question in the Q&A box, we will make sure it gets answered. The next question is, where is the continuity for our young students when they attend in-person instruction every 2 days?
So Ms. Kazmark, can you answer that question for us, please? Thank you.
Yeah, we recognize that the younger students need more instruction and more daily instruction, but our first priority is to ensure that everybody is safely in the building. And we want to make sure that everybody is socially distanced and providing that instruction and that safety is our priority. So we're going to ensure that students have contact with the teacher daily in one way or another, but they will be engaged in asynchronous learning for several, 2 to 3 days a week, and checking in with their teacher each day in the afternoon if they're not receiving live instruction.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Kazmark. And before we go to the next question, I just want to, echo, those sentiments and say, listen, we clearly know that there is no substitute for real, 5-day-a-week full in-person instruction. But, currently under the pandemic and the circumstances that we have and the guidance from the Department of Education, we do need to socially distance students. We do not have facilities that are large enough. Our facilities would have to be double in order for us to accommodate all of our students in person every day if we have to follow social distancing guidelines. So the first priority is safety, and the safest way that we can do that is to offer these hybrid AB schedules.
And remember, this is a phase 1 implementation. So as Mr. Sanchez mentions, our phase 1, it will end on October 15th. And at that point, we can reevaluate and decide if we're able to provide more continuity, more live in-person instruction safely.
Okay. Sorry. I thought that was another question. Okay. Please elaborate more upon remote learning. Specifically, how is remote learning structured? How many hours will my child be required to be in front of a computer, and will lessons be live streamed or recorded? I started to answer this question and just say it's so different in the elementary, in the middle, and high school that this might be a more appropriate question in the schools forum, but I didn't, I just wanted to confirm that that was appropriate.
I mean, I think you're right on the mark. I mean, it may be depending on what grade level, this person's child is or children are. Some of those questions may be best suited for the school meetings, unless any of the, principals, do we have a grade? I mean,
there was no grade there, but if they type in their question on the bottom, then if you have a question about that, I will be glad to, if they have a specific grade, we can elaborate more. Will students be traveling to different classrooms, or will they stay in one classroom and teachers travel to them?
So again, that depends on the building. I would say in most cases, obviously we're trying to limit that travel, but it really does depend on the building. And I think at the elementary school, it's more suited towards a student staying in the same classroom all day. At the high school and middle school, those may present some challenges, but you would have to ask those administrators. I don't know if either of the two principals from either the high school or middle school would like to speak on this a little bit.
Sure. We're still, we're extending the class periods a little bit during the half days to enable fewer transitions in between classes. And then we're looking into extending the time in between classes so that we may, figure out a way to effectively clean the classrooms. But what we're really looking at is only 3 transitions per day for each cohort of students that are in the building.
And at the middle school, we are looking at having the teachers travel between the core 4 subjects, science, social studies, math, and language arts, so that we minimize hallway movement as much as possible and students remain in the class.
If we do not believe our child would get an education equal to that being in school full-time, can we keep her out and attend next year?
So, I'm sorry, repeat the question again. I'm sorry, I just, my phone buzzed in.
It was, if they didn't feel like their child could get an equal education in school this year, can they keep her out of school for this year and put her back in next year?
Okay. Yeah, so there's 3 options, right? There's the hybrid schedule, which we know. There's the full remote option, and the last option would be a parent can always, choose to homeschool their child. And basically what they would have to do is send us a letter saying that they wanted to homeschool their child, and then they can make that decision afterwards. Ms. Kazmark, would you like to?
I wanted to jump in on that. So if you have a preschool or a kindergarten age child that you're holding back and delaying their schooling, but it's a different conversation. But if your child is entering 1st through 12th grade, not sending them to school for a year is not going to be an option for you. You would have to choose either the hybrid in-person model, the full virtual model, or elect to homeschool your child. But homeschooling requires you to, as the superintendent said, send a letter saying that you're electing to homeschool. And we would be removing the student from our roles as a Hackensack student. And the responsibility falls on the parent to provide the schooling at home. There's no access to devices, textbooks, curriculum. Our curriculum is online, so you can always access that, but there's no obligation as on Hackensack Public Schools to support you if you choose homeschooling. It becomes on the parent to do that. And if you chose to re-enroll your child in a year, you would have to go through the re-registration process and register them essentially as a new student. And with any student that's participated in homeschool, this is pre-COVID through our current situation, the district has the right to test the child to ensure that they have the skills for that particular grade level. And then, if they're not up to par, be able to place them in the grade level based on their skills. And that's just, true for homeschool legislation. So I have had several conversations with families about homeschooling. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware. If you choose a full remote option or you choose an in-person hybrid, you're a Hackensack Public School student, and it's the responsibility of Hackensack Public Schools to educate your child. If you choose homeschool, you're no longer enrolled as a Hackensack student, and the responsibility falls on the parent.
Okay. Sorry, I have to scroll up. Okay. Will elementary students who opt for all remote be assigned only a virtual academy teacher, or are they also assigned to a classroom teacher? How many children and how many grade levels are assigned per virtual academy teacher?
So I'll defer again. Dr. Kazmark, do you want to chime in on that?
Can we repeat the question? I'm sorry. I
Will
can't.
elementary students who opt for all remote be assigned only a virtual academy teacher, or are they also assigned to a classroom teacher? How many children and how many grade levels are assigned per virtual academy teacher?
We don't have the specific information on that because we don't have the numbers of how many students are choosing virtual academy. If you are choosing a virtual academy option, you would definitely be assigned a virtual academy teacher, but you may also be placed at least in a class list for an in-person class in the event that you chose to opt into a class at a later time, or if you were going, or if the district essentially went back to a full-time schedule, there would be a placement for you. But the primary teacher we are believing would be a virtual academy teacher based on what we're looking at currently in our model.
If a student opts to go complete virtual, will they follow the same in-person schedule? I believe the answer to that is yes, right?
Yeah.
They designate as an AB.
Yes.
Ms. Golum, this may be a question that for you. The person that wanted to know more about remote learning was a pre-K4 remote learning question. She wanted to know more about what remote learning would look like in pre-K4.
Okay, so we have the creative curriculum, and we do have access to through TS Gold to online learning. So it would be if you're talking full-time remote, we're still, as I said, we're still working out the details on that because we're trying to figure out how many students will be accommodating. And there is also at the preschool level a concern about how much screen time a child is on, but we would have we have a pacing guide and units of study which would be going on, in school would be the same pacing guide and units of study that the child at home on remote would be receiving. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure. So.
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had just asked to repeat the AB schedule. So the AB schedule is A is designated as Monday and Thursdays. B is designated as Tuesdays and Fridays. And Wednesdays will be designated as either an A or a B day, depending on the month, because we want to keep the students in school an equitable amount. So they will, and you'll get a calendar each month that will tell you which Wednesdays are A or B. But Monday and Thursdays are A, Tuesdays and Fridays are B, and Wednesday is either A or B at the elementary schools. I apologize, at the elementary schools. I believe that, no, that's the same for everybody, K to 12. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, that's for everybody.
Will kids that stay home have access to building to participate in sports after school and extracurricular activities?
Yeah, so that question came up with our two students in our morning meeting. We haven't finalized that decision yet. I can tell you that I'm hearing from quite a few school districts. I think it's a mix. I'm hearing from quite a few school districts that they're not allowing students to participate in extracurricular activities if they choose the full remote model. There are some districts that are. We haven't finalized that decision yet. As soon as we make that decision, we'll let everybody know. I can tell you my own kids' school district, they've already made that decision that they're not going to allow students that participate in a full remote model to participate in sports. But that's that district. That doesn't mean that that's our final decision yet. So as soon as we know, we'll let you know.
The next question is for Mr. Pemberton. Will children in elementary MD classrooms that have less than 10 kids be in school full-time?
Okay, good evening. Currently, all of our students are gonna follow the AB schedule model. However, we are gonna look at students' IEPs and their individual situations, and when possible, we'll bring them in for more days if possible, according to the goals and things in the IEPs. So when possible, and when we can do it, we will, to better service those students.
And another one for you, Mr. Pemberton. How will virtual learning look for children with an IEP?
So that's also going to vary by grade level. But the instruction of related services and things that are in students' IEPs will be continue to be delivered virtually. Also, our teachers and our paraprofessionals go through the same training and try to provide the best supports that they can also with the students virtually.
Being a healthcare worker, will the AB cohort session be 2 weeks at a time? Given the fact that if someone from either group is positive, they will need to quarantine for 14 days. So I'm not sure about the question. The AB cohort session be 2 weeks at a time.
Well, it won't be 2 weeks at a time. I'm a little confused at the question, but it won't be 2 weeks at a time. What I can tell you, if a student or staff member becomes, test positive, we will contact the health department and they will guide us accordingly as to what our next steps are.
What is the transition plan for students returning to in-person instruction from all virtual learning?
So basically, when we say transition plan, I'll say this. So students and we're mandated to this. So students that choose a full remote option are still receiving the same high quality education that the students that choose the in-person model. We're mandated to that. So the transition plan shouldn't be very different, but I guess it's a case-by-case situation. If there are struggles or if there's some challenges, I would suggest that those parents speak directly to their building administration. If the student is a special needs child, for sure, they should definitely collaborate with their case managers to make sure that they come up with a good plan to allow the students in. But overall, whether a student chooses the full remote option or an in-person option, we're mandated to make sure that they all receive an equitable education. So transition should not be, anything significant.
During phase 1, did you say that virtual learning will continue in the afternoon? If so, they will be required to log in when they get home. Yes, it will continue in the afternoon and they will be required to log in in the afternoon. Okay. Sorry. Can you opt in per marking period as far as learning?
So the opting in will be following the phase schedule. And again, right now I don't have it in front of me, but I do know that the first phase goes until October 19th. And then it's, I think, October 19th until November 27th. And perhaps, if I remember correctly, November 27th until January 30th. So those would be the opportunities to phase in, to choose to go back in. I will say that, listen, let's take one step at a time. The guidance that we receive changes daily from the Department of Ed and the governor's office and the nationwide health crisis. So let's take it one step at a time. I don't want to speak to marking periods. Right now we have laid out is this phased approach, but even that can change, right? It's all subject to the local health conditions and any guidance that we receive from the Department of Education. Truth be told, in October, the middle of October, they may say shut everything down again. So we don't know.
Will students be required to log into class a specific time every day? Will the duration of a virtual class be the same length as an in-person class, i.e. 40-minute periods?
So I think, once again, I think that depends on the grade levels. I think high school, middle school, it's a little different than what's happening at the elementary schools. So, those questions, I would say either email your administration directly, and again, somebody may have children in multiple schools, or wait for that school's session, that school's parent forum, so that you can ask those questions directly, because each grade span is a little different.
Okay. Flu season is in October. What will happen? Ms. Lamparelli, do you want to speak to that?
I was typing my answer to that. We are, however, we are going to be watching very closely and waiting guidance from the state on when we would close schools. We don't know. And also mistaking the illness for possibly COVID-19.
I think we're having some trouble there with Ms. Lambert, or at least connection.
Well, so listen, so I'll say this, because, I mean, I understood Ms. Lamparelli, but again, her connection was a little, distorted. But I'll say this, ultimately, we have to follow the guidance from the health department. The health department's going to tell us, I personally do not have the authority to shut down schools. So it really, depending on what's going on, COVID versus flu, they'll tell us what has to happen.
Okay. The next question, Mr. Montesano, oh wait, something happened. It went up. Okay. What is a virtual academy teacher? A virtual academy teacher is a teacher that teaches all remote, right? We'll teach the all remote option.
We'll teach the all remote option rather than have any live, and they'll have only remote instruction to kids who are 100% remote.
For the elementary level, they're asking about virtual classes. And I think this would go back to the question of, that would be a question that would be asked on the school base. Do you agree?
Yeah, the schedule specifically for the students on virtual will mirror the number of minutes that the kids are receiving in live. And the virtual teaching will happen live, but the actual schedule and number of minutes is more directed to a school and how they've determined to schedule.
Following up to virtual academy teachers, what is the class limit or highest number of students that will be assigned to each virtual academy teacher? Were virtual academy teachers working with students in one grade level or multiple grade levels?
So there's limits to how many grade levels and different subjects our teachers can teach in a given day. So there would be, we'd be following those restrictions like we would normally in a live class, and teachers would be assigned accordingly. We really can't speak to how many students would be assigned to a teacher virtually because we don't know how many students are opting for virtual instruction right now. So that's something that we would need to determine as we know for sure how many students are choosing virtual instruction.
Per the survey that was initially sent out, what is the percentage of parents that said they would choose remote learning if they had the option?
So I could speak in generalities to that. So the initial survey that went out, quite frankly, I think it was only 550 parents that have actually answered the survey. From that 550, I would say about approximately 60% were leaning towards full remote. But again, that's 550 families out of a potential 3,100 families. So how indicative that survey really is, we don't know. Hence, what's most important right at this point in time is that we get those forms filled out via Genesis or the in-paper version that's coming to the homes, because that's where the parents are actually going to sign what they've chosen, and that's how we're going to know how this plan is going to work out best.
For my kindergartner, how would the remote learning look? Will it be virtual, or will we be given packets to hand in at the end of phase 1? I can answer that. They will not be given packets. Virtual learning, the guidance that the state released is that they have to receive the same quality of instruction and it has to be just as engaging as in-person instruction.
We also are following the developmentally appropriate practices for younger students, especially for preschool and kindergarten. So there might be a mix of, paper-based assignments and virtual assignments, so that students aren't, consistently working on a computer for 6 hours a day as a younger grade student, but they do have to receive the same quality of instruction. So there would be a virtual component to their learning that would involve interactions with a teacher via the computer.
Will there be another parent forum before the end of phase 1 to update parents on what to expect for phase 2 and same before phase 3?
So the short answer is probably, of course, there's going to be updates along the way. In a couple of weeks, we have our next board meeting. I'm sure I'm going to be giving some update based off of more recent guidance that I'll have at that time. But the next update you should receive is any meetings that are taking place at your local school, and whatever meetings your principals are running, because that's where you're going to get a lot more specific information that will deal with your child's education. Remember, this district plan is something that all schools are mirroring and following into and leading into. It guides them in how they develop their plans, but there are a lot of building specific nuances that really, from what doors they use to screen students, to what the actual schedule will look like and the number of instructional minutes within those actual scheduled periods. That's information that you could only get from your principals. So the next update will probably be from your building principal, and then somewhere in between there and there, you'll receive an update. If you choose to attend the public Board of Ed meeting, I'll be giving an update then. But listen, the guidance changes daily, and I don't want to give you a number of updates because I may be giving you many updates, or I may be giving you one update. So it's hard to say.
For the students who attend Bergen for shared time, will there still be buses available?
Mr. Pemberton, can you speak to that? I'm not sure exactly how that currently works, to be honest with you.
Yes, I know currently we've been in collaboration with them. They haven't, because they deal with 50 different districts, working on coordinating their schedule with our A and B schedules for the high school. So it's a process of something we're still working on, but it hasn't quite been ironed out yet.
Thank you.
Mr. Sapero, will kids take their Chromebook to school on their days in school?
We're still working on the exact details, but yes, in grades, as of right now, in grades 2 through 12, that will be the case. Grades K and 1, we are looking to have carts of Chromebooks in the classroom to supplement the ones they keep at home. So that way they do not have to travel back and forth with them.
And listen, if I may add, because not everybody may know this, every student will have their own district device, which was not the case, last year. We did a lot of scrambling at the end of the year, as that obviously the emergency dictated. We all know we had a one-to-one initiative already at the high school. The middle school also had a one-to-one initiative where the Chromebooks were not going home. Moving forward, every student will have their own district device.
What are the credentials of a virtual academy teacher? So a virtual academy teacher has to be certified, just like a teacher that will be teaching in person. Will the schools have air purifiers in each classroom?
So yeah, so there won't be air purifier. There will not be air purifiers in each classroom, but each classroom will have fresh air exchange, which is mandated. So that we could speak to. Air purifiers, I do not believe that we will have air purifiers in each room.
Will you allow face shields to be worn for elementary students?
So face shields could possibly be worn, of course, but they cannot replace a face covering. Ms. Lamparelli, would you like to discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, I typed the answer. Absolutely. If a parent preference is a mask with a face shield, that's absolutely not a problem.
But it has to be in addition to the face covering.
Correct. A face shield is not sufficient by itself. It must be accompanied by the mask that covers the nose and the mouth.
Thank you.
The next question is about parents being honest on a health screen. Do you think, are you relying on parents to honestly fill out a health screen form when students are sent to school sick when there is no pandemic?
So I don't know. I mean, what I'll say is that, we currently, before COVID, we didn't have control over that. I mean, listen, we all know that there's parents that would, give children a couple Tylenol before they came into school and mask a fever. Of course, we're relying on our parents to be honest. Will they all be honest? We don't know that, but we are relying on them to be honest. It's for everybody's safety, their own child's safety.
I think we also have to remember, and Ms. Lamparelli could speak better to this than I can, but I think we also have to remember that there are protocols in place for visual screenings and isolation rooms if kids are developing symptoms. So, we are aware that we may end up with students who come to school sick, and there will be protocols in place to screen for that and ensure that they're isolated quickly and sent home accordingly.
When will we know who the teachers are for the virtual academy? So I'm assuming that would come in the end of August when the teacher assignments would come.
Right.
What is the maximum number that would be assigned to a virtual academy teacher? Maximum number of students?
It's really difficult to answer that. We don't have a maximum number yet because we really have to look at certifications of teachers and numbers of students that are opting for virtual and what is reasonable, for an expectation for a teacher to monitor and teach live to students. So I can't speak to that. I really can't. We haven't finalized the details as to what the numbers are and how many teachers we need to assign to a virtual environment.
Are the individual school meetings posted on the school websites, or where can we find the information? That information will be forthcoming by the building administrators.
Correct.
Will my twins be in the same kindergarten class? Will after school care be available? So I guess they're concerned about whether or not their twins will be an AB, or maybe if they want them in the same class.
I think that's something that needs to be followed up with on the building level. If there's a request for twins to be put together, given the current situation, I think make that request to your building leaders, but we are I know that building leaders are making attempts to ensure that siblings are on the same day to make it easier for families to get kids to school.
The next question is for our Director of Building Grounds. Will classrooms be cleaned in between the students switching classes?
I don't think so. We have enough time to clean classroom between the classes. I don't think it can be clean, can be made to be clean.
So I think, but to piggyback off of Mr. Kazazi's comments, I guess it also depends on the school schedule. Like if there's an in-between period that's empty, that room is empty, then it's possible that that classroom will be clean. But I don't believe, like in a high school or middle school setting where there may be 2 or 3 minutes of pastime, that it would be possible to, disinfect an entire classroom within that 2 or 3 minutes.
Will you guys hire substitute custodians to clean bathrooms and common areas?
So we recognize that we're probably going to need additional staff. Actually, we recently put on a number of substitute custodians to assist us just getting through the summer. So we definitely recognize that we might need additional staff to help us with our cleaning protocols.
Well, I will say I do feel like there still might be some misunderstanding about the AB, because somebody's asking if siblings will attend the same school, will be in the same week or group. I believe that the building administrators are doing everything they can to put them in the same A or B cohort, but it's not a week. I just want to be clear that it's days of the week so that we're not misunderstanding. It's A group is going to be Monday and Thursdays. B group is going to be Tuesday and Fridays. And Wednesday will be alternating A or B. I don't know if the building administrators have anything to add to the siblings in the same cohort or in the same AB group. When is the first day of school for students?
So currently, and I don't have it in front of me, currently, I believe it's the 2nd. I could be wrong, but we're looking to adjust that schedule. We're hoping that it may be September 8th. Again, we're trying to meet with our association to potentially get some of the first couple of days of school to be for training for our staff. So more than likely, it may be September 8th, but currently, whatever it is, whether it's the 2nd or the 3rd, it's up on our district website right now, but that's subject to change. More than likely, it's going to be
It's the
September
same
8th.
chance.
Yes, I'm sorry.
3rd, September 3rd. It would have been, but
Right.
it might change. And that's a half day.
Mr. Pemberton, how will hearing impaired and speech students be accommodated with teachers having to wear a mask?
Okay, right. So we are working with our teacher of the deaf and our audiologist on purchasing the masks that have the clear mouth front for our students that read lips and things of that nature. So we are in collaboration with them on getting those when it's necessary in the classroom.
Can you please repeat? So this might be for Dr. Galliana and maybe one of the elementary building principals. Can you please repeat how the live virtual lessons will be conducted for elementary and middle school? That might be a school. I don't know. The live virtual lessons would be via, for the Hackensack Middle School, it's going to be in person. I mean, live with live streaming. And then the elementary will be also with live streaming from, but not from the classroom. That they would have a virtual academy teacher assigned.
They would
to
have the live instruction via Zoom or, Google Meets. But in the middle and high school, we're currently looking to stream the instruction that's happening live to students at home, but that isn't something we're considering right now for elementary.
Mr. Sapero, will students be required to have a district supplied device?
It's not required per se. We would prefer it because obviously they would then have access to the same tools. It would just make it easier for the experience all around. But if they have a device at home that they prefer to use, they are welcome to use that. We do have enough devices for each student to be assigned a device.
Will parents be able to do all remote learning for the entire school year?
With the current guidance, yes, but again, that's subject to change based off what the Department of Education says.
Yeah, we can't commit to that being an option because we don't know what would change in the future.
Mr. Pemberton, how will IEP services be completed for those students returning to in person?
Okay, so great. Most of the related services would continue virtually. So if there were a student on their B day and they receive speech on another related service, they would get that service virtually. In a lot of the in-person services, whether it's counseling or whatever else is in their IEP, will be provided on site when necessary, or maybe even provided via Zoom while in the building. So they will still get the services according to the IEP, but it may be delivered virtually or just safely within the school building when they're in person.
Mr. Pemberton, what will special services look like? Will they still take place? Will clear mask, oh, you answered this question already. Will clear mask be provided to conduct speech therapy? So you already answered this question. There are some people that are asking about they didn't receive a form. And some people are saying they did not get the form in Genesis. And some people are saying they didn't get the form at all.
Well, all right, so we'll look into that. My understanding is that everybody that's been registered got the form pushed to them via Genesis. Obviously, hard copies will be made available and being mailed home for those that have not responded. So we'll make sure that everybody gets the form in hand. But I will say this also, if there's a family out there that has not received the form, contact your school. They'll make sure you get the form.
I've been trying to respond to those questions privately in the chat, but if you have a Genesis parent portal account and you log into there, the form should automatically come up as soon as you log in for you to fill out and look at. If you don't have an account, I agree, you have to contact your school to get one set up. If you're a preschool parent who does not have another child registered in our district currently, then the form will be mailed to you. It has not gone out yet, but it will go out next week.
For new students and incoming freshmen attending the school district, how do parents get Genesis logon and password information to fill out the form? Mr. Sapiro, do you want to? No, you don't know.
That's done through the each school. They have to contact each school. There's a form that needs to be completed so that they can get access.
Right.
Well, it also depends too. If they have if they're out of district, for example, if they're Rochelle Park or South Hackensack, and if they have another child already in the district, already who's a junior or whatever, if they can just email one of the administrators, email me, the freshman assistant principal, and I will add their child onto their account.
Mr.
Just as another note regarding the forms, the school office staff, the secretaries are troubleshooting the forms as it relates to the FERPA consent form. So contact your child's school for sure if you're not receiving it or you're unsure how to gain access to that.
I believe the next question is about like notification. So if a parent chooses remote learning and their child has an IEP, how will they be notified how that is going to be handled? Mr. Pemberton.
Yeah, so as students with IEPs choose the full remote learning option, we'll be reaching out to them via the school and their case manager so we can ensure that all the services are being provided and that virtual learning academy is appropriate for that student. And that also will look different depending on the grade level of how that instruction and the related services are delivered.
Will the YMCA aftercare program still be available?
So right now, that's the plan. Is actually Mr. McAfee has actually been part of our Restart committee, so he's been attending all of our meetings. So we expect that to be the case.
When is the high school forum?
What we're currently looking at, just because again, the large size of the high school, we're probably going to break them up into grade levels. Traditionally, like we always do, is have grade level parent meetings. So they're usually probably towards the end of August, we're going to have our forums.
Have the schools completely been cleaned and or sanitized, as well as the pest and or rodent problems been taken care of?
Schools continue cleaning, the summer cleaning, so it's not finished yet. Some of them are almost 70% clean.
How will students receive print materials for class, such as novels or class library books, or will all materials be digital?
We have expanded our libraries of digital books for middle and high school to provide that as an option. But if there's a print material or resource that's required for virtual learning to be successful, it would be provided to the student through either a pickup service or traditional mail, which is what we did during the closures in the spring.
The next question was answered. When would we know if our child would be an A or a B student? No later than August 14th. Will the children be able to see one another with the virtual academy teacher? Yes, they'll be able to see each other and interact. Do you have a visual of what the classrooms will look like?
That really varies. Every classroom in our district is slightly different. Even within a school, even within the same school, classrooms look very different. So that's hard to say. And listen, clearly we could take a picture of one of the classrooms that's socially distant, but your child's classroom may not look like that classroom. What we will tell you is that in all cases, the administrators are working to create that 6 foot of social distancing space in between students. So that's something that they're definitely going to work on and try to finalize. But what a classroom looks like, even within the same school, the classrooms look very different.
Mr. Sapiro, has the Board of Education figured out how to prevent the internet lag while remote learning? We have the highest internet and still experience problems with being shut out of the lesson and freezing.
Unfortunately, a lot of that, it doesn't really depend on our network. It's the other pieces of that out there, whether our providers, the providers outside, the companies that we contract with. For example, with Zoom, none of that really relies on our network except for our teachers streaming out. The connections for the students are all handled by Zoom. So if there happens to be a slowdown, it's likely on Zoom's end due to the amount of traffic that's going on throughout the country at this point with virtual activity. So there's limited ability for us to control that. I am going to be upgrading the bandwidth for the district to 5 gigabytes. We're doing that this month to ensure that teachers that are streaming from the classroom have enough sufficient bandwidth to accomplish that. But for students, if you experience any issues with bandwidth, please contact your provider. Make sure that that there's nothing wrong with your connection at all, like that the equipment is working correctly. If you continue to experience issues, contact us at the tech department. We'll see if there's anything we can help with on the Chromebook side of it. Other than that, if you do not have a stable internet connection at home, or we're using the optimum free Wi-Fi, please reach out to the tech department at tech@hackensackschools.org or via phone at 201-646-6820 to obtain a hotspot if you need one. We have a limited number of hotspots, so we can't make them available to everyone. But if someone does not have a good internet connection at home or no internet at home, please reach out to us and we'll try to accommodate you as quickly as we can.
And and if I may, I'd like to piggyback on Mr. Sapero's comments. Also, too, remember, while we were remote, a lot of our teachers were working from their own homes, so their own internet connection at home may have impacted what lessons look like. Moving forward in September, our teachers will be within the district using our high-quality internet, so that may improve that situation.
Okay. Many of the air conditioning units are old. Will new ones or new filters be put in classrooms?
Almost air conditioned in every school are old, and almost everybody knows that. We have changed the filters, and the filters were upgraded to NERV 11 and 13, which is high quality for air cleaning.
A parent just noted that all of the Hackensack schools should have air conditioning for our students. Will you be posting the slideshow on the school website?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the whole meeting was recorded, but we can do that as well.
Will virtual students have textbooks to work from?
Yes, if they need a in-person textbook, we can provide one. Otherwise, we do have online resources, including access to the textbooks that they would be able to access virtually. But any materials that students require to be successful in virtual learning would be provided through the district.
Some districts are doing the same A-B hybrid, but with Wednesday as all remote for a deep clean. Scheduling A-B with alternating 5th day will be complicated for parents to plan. Not being sure about the kids not being able to participate in after-school activities is making it hard to make a final decision. So I guess that's something to consider.
Sure. So what I'll say to that is we'll turn an answer on that question very quickly. By Monday, we'll come up with a final decision on that.
Will children that are entering a new grade be grouped with the kids from their last grade?
I think that's more of a school-based questions as they're determining their lists. And I think, we've had multiple conversations and we understand the social emotional impact for students having been, abruptly kind of left from their grade levels last year. So I think, you know, our principals and vice principals are working really hard to ensure that, you know, that's accommodated when necessary. So I think if you have specific questions about, you know, kids, you know, and where your child is being placed in with who, that can be directed to your child's school.
What time will they be required to log back in after dismissal for the virtual afternoon session? I believe that varies per level.
Yeah, it's definitely going to vary by level based on the time that the day ends for the students and when the lunch and preps are scheduled for the teachers.
But the school day is still 8 to 3.
Right.
Any way you look at it, whether we're in phase 1, phase 2, phase 5, it's still 8 to 3.
Right, and we have some things like specials and some other things that might be happening only virtually. So they may happen earlier and then a check-in with a teacher at a later afternoon time. So, but you know, if your day is ending at 12:30, your timing for login would definitely be sometime after 1:30, I believe.
Okay. Does that mean the virtual academy teacher is not a current teacher in the Hackensack School District? Would the virtual academy teacher be someone who has taught that grade level before?
The virtual academy teacher will be a Hackensack teacher. And as we've stated earlier, the teachers that are going to be running a virtual academy are going to be certified for that. And, you know, when applicable, obviously have taught the grade level before. We can't commit that that's always going to be the case because we haven't seen how many students and what teachers are available for that at this point. But yes, they would definitely be certified to teach that. They will definitely be a Hackensack teacher. And when possible, and preferably will be a teacher who's taught the grade level before.
Are all schools using the same virtual classroom platform, meaning Zoom or Google Meets, or does each teacher or school have a choice?
There will be some centralization across the schools as to the platforms that are being utilized, but there may be some, you know, teacher discretion as to whether they want to use Google Meets or Zoom, but there will be guidelines that they need to follow.
Dr. Kazmar, can you speak briefly on what the various platforms are that we're using? I know we purchased some of them, so you know.
Right. So we have expanded we've expanded our platforms that we currently were using to enhance the capabilities of what those platforms did. So we expanded licenses and upgraded memberships with Newsella, which is a reading platform that we used, but we've now expanded to include science and social studies. We've expanded, Seesaw to include our younger grades. We've, taken a look at expanding our, upgrading our memberships to Edupuzzle and Screencastify so that their capabilities are a little bit more enhanced. We've purchased iExcel for grades K-5. So we're trying to enhance the products that kids were already using in the spring so that they're familiar, but so that they, provide a greater variety of and more engaging, activities for students and giving teachers more options to, assign virtual assignments to students.
Is there a possibility that if 50% of the parents opt out of in-school learning, would that open up the other half of the class to attend full-time or additional days? I believe the answer is no, because they can opt in at the end of phase 1, which would require a lot of scheduling changes. What is the deadline for choosing which option you want? August 1st.
Yeah, and listen, we totally understand that, today's meeting, is very close to August 1st, but listen, as early as possible next week would be helpful because we do know that some people are still haven't received the paper form for those that didn't have a Genesis access. So that August 1st deadline is real, but obviously there's a little bit of flexibility there. But I think from the nature of this whole entire discussion, I think we all know the sooner the district knows how many students are going to be in for in-person, a lot more can be finalized and the administrators will have more tools at their disposal to be able to answer more of your questions. While we don't know who's in, it's going to be very challenging for the administrators to tell you what schedule. And
I think that's the important point. I think that's the important point. Like the earlier we know and the more responses we have in, the more specifics we can provide as it relates to the instruction.
We have a question in Spanish now. ¿Qué pasa si no mando a mis hijas a la escuela por miedo a contagiarse del coronavirus? What happens if I decide not to send my daughters to school because I am afraid they may get sick with coronavirus? I believe this was answered before, so I'm going to say it in Spanish. Lo que pasa es si usted desea no mandar a las niñas a la escuela, usted necesita decidir si desea hacer toda la enseñanza remota desde su casa, como se hizo al final del año, pero con recursos adicionales y ya con clases visuales con los maestros, o si usted desea hacer lo que se llamamos en inglés el homeschooling, que es ser la maestra usted de los niños o alguien en la familia, enseñarle en casa, pero tiene que asegurarse de que los niños reciban toda la instrucción necesaria y que al final del año escolar puedan rendir sus exámenes y estar a nivel de grado para que en años posteriores, si usted decide volverlo a meterlos en la escuela, va a tener que volver a registrarlos en la escuela y los niños van a tener que dar pruebas para poder constatar que ellos están a su nivel de grado. Si usted decide hacer esto, los niños van básicamente a salir del registro de la escuela, ya no van a ser estudiantes de Hackensack Schools, sino que van a ser estudiantes en su casa con maestros pues de la familia, ¿verdad? Si usted desea volver a ponerlos en la escuela, tiene que volver a registrarlos y llenar todos los papeles de registración. Pero recuerde que también usted puede decidir que los niños reciban instrucción remota durante el año escolar.
Gracias.
Nena.
Ms. Bermudez, there
Just-
seems to be another question too.
Okay, yes. So the proposal that exists right now where students or kids can be allowed to be in the outdoors of the school, in the playground, and without using a mask really worries me. As a mom, this particularly worries me. Can this decision be revoked? So I don't know if that would be a question for our nurse, Ms.
Well,
Zamparelli.
actually, there's two parts. It could be the nurse, but if the mom is talking about high school sports, Mr. Montesano, perhaps you can speak a little bit to the face coverings and the NJSIAA rules. And
Sure. The NJSA has given us very, very specific guidelines as far as what students are allowed to do and when they have to wear a mask and when they don't. We've monitored it, we've supervised it. So as the students are waiting to be checked in and have their temperatures checked and their COVID forms turned in, they are required to wear a mask. If a coach is giving instruction, they are required to wear a mask. But as they, transition into strenuous activity and, increased breathing activities, they do not have to wear a mask as long as they are effectively distanced. And again, on our fields, that's a pretty easy thing to do.
Entonces, go ahead.
I'm just going to add the elementary schools are not having recess at this time. So for those, children, they will not be outside playing and congregating on the playground.
En esta pregunta, la pregunta es específicamente la preocupación de que los niños no usen mascarilla dentro de las canchas deportivas o dentro de lo que son las áreas de juego afuera de la escuela, ¿verdad? Para las personas que tienen los niños en las escuelas elementarias o primarias, no va a haber la opción de que los niños vayan a estar jugando fuera. Por el momento no va a haber receso, no va a haber recreo. Y para los chicos más grandes que se encuentran en la high school, en la escuela secundaria, con lo que tiene que ver con los deportes, todo lo que es el departamento atlético, cada uno de ellos tiene su entrenador o su coach. Entonces, esos coaches van a estar encargados de revisar la temperatura, de completar las formas, de recibir todo el papeleo para asegurarse de que todos los chicos que estén participando estén en buena condición física y salud. Luego que estén jugando en las canchas, a medida de que van a empezar a hacer la actividad física, de pronto sí van a tener que sacarse la máscara porque van a tener la oportunidad de estar distanciados socialmente, porque las canchas son grandes y los coaches o los entrenadores van a estar monitoreando esto para asegurar la seguridad de todos los chicos.
so thank you to all three. I'm going to say this, clearly, a lot of the parents know that I speak Spanish, but there's no way I would have been able to translate that so eloquently. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
Will all assignments need to be done in real time when virtual?
I think it's going to vary depending on the class. To some extent, teachers do have autonomy when planning lessons and delivering instruction, and that is something that I think is going to vary based on, grade level in class and what the expectation is. If there's 100% of a virtual, if you're opting in for 100% virtual instruction, there will most likely include some assignments that are going to need to be, entered in real time as part of the daily instruction. I would assume, but I think, that is something that is going to be at a teacher's discretion based on, the way that their lessons are planned and implemented.
But listen, we understand the hardships that people are experiencing. So we're going to say, communicate with your teachers and principals. We don't want a student to fail because they're not handing in assignments on time because there's some other issue that's going on. Maybe a family member is sick, so again, we just want you to communicate. I'm not saying that kids have a pass, but we're saying that we need you to communicate with us to let us know what your challenges are, and we will help you get through them.
There are other districts such as Fairlawn who are similar in size, who are accommodating 5 full days for grades 1 through 3. These grades are essential to the foundation of their education for the younger students. Why can't Hackensack implement something closer to that model?
Well, I mean, listen, I can't speak to how they're running their plans, and I don't know, while what you say is true, because I have heard that. We agree that the primary grades are critically important, but I can't speak to, how they're socially distancing their classrooms, what guidelines they're following to social distance their classroom, if they're trying to maintain 6 feet or 3 feet that the Academy of Pediatrics is speaking to, but like our guidance has to do with the CDC, which is recommending 6 feet, not the Academy of Pediatrics. So I don't want to speak about any other school district's plans because I don't know how they're running theirs. I know that we can only run ours based off of the guidance that we have and creating the safest way possible for our students. But we do agree that the primary grades are important. Listen, we get it. As I opened up, there is no substitute for in-person instruction. We know that.
And also, Mr. Sanchez, the amount of space that we have in our schools, we're pretty crowded in each of our 4 elementary schools with the regular classes. So we don't have a lot of extra space to socially distance those children.
Yeah, and I'm also going to couple that with, remember, we do have a lot of older buildings. A lot of our buildings are over 100 years old. A new classroom built on the new standards by the Department of Education has to meet a minimum of 750 square feet. A lot of our classrooms are in the 500 and 600 square foot range, which was appropriate at the time that these buildings were built. So, we have some challenges. I can't speak to any other school districts, schools and facilities because I don't know that.
Fairlawn also moved their 5th graders into the middle school this year. So there's some additional space in their elementaries, which I think was allowing them to spread kids out a little bit more than maybe they had previous.
Yes, and they've expanded they've had construction, so.
Can the students stay in the same classroom and the teachers move to each classroom? I guess that would be a middle school and a high school question, is the person who's asking.
Yes, I think I spoke to this before. At the middle school, we will attempt and are looking at having the students stay while the teachers travel between, especially for those core 4 classes during the phase 1.
Mr. Sapiro, since students will not be taking their Chromebooks back and forth from home to school, will the Chromebooks at school be sanitized between classes?
No Chromebooks will be shared. So any Chromebooks that will be stored in classes at school will be assigned to a student and will not be used by anyone else. That's for K1. Other grades, students will have their own device that they take home and bring back every day. So that's not an issue there.
Will the students have to eventually get supplies for in-school learning? I'm assuming they mean if parents will have to purchase supplies, and assuming yes, because there can't be any sharing. So everybody will eventually get a supply list, right? That will have to be used.
Yeah, that should be something that comes out when you have your school meetings.
We did that every summer regardless. It's just going to look a little different this one. We always did this summer supply list. And then to Mr. Sanchez's point and Ms. Ashton Loeb and to everybody here, we do have rooms that were scheduled as called a resource room, kindergarten room, or a first grade room on one floor. So each building is unique depending on how we set them up. And that's what we're all working on right now.
I think some parents are getting the impression that students at home will be seeing the same lessons as the students in class. Can you clarify?
This is being explored at the middle and high school level as an option. It's something that's been, as part of their plan, so that students in middle and high school would be able to log in and see the live instruction. It's been part of our conversations. We did a simulation to see how it might work at the high school a couple weeks ago. It is not an option in the elementary schools. The elementary students would have either asynchronous learning or live Zoom sessions with the teachers. It's not something we're considering right now at the elementary level.
When will we know if the first day has moved to September 8th?
After the next board meeting, because if we change the calendar, we have to adopt it at the next board meeting. So I think our next board meeting is August 13th. So after that date.
Mr. Pemberton, what is the protocol for special ed teachers and paras to handle student behavior on an elementary level? Sometimes there are students who have challenging behaviors. What is the protocol for the staff to follow?
Also, definitely, we've already partnered for training prior to the students arriving for all of our teachers and paraprofessionals that would be in a situation where they would have to, break the social distance protocol per se, or handle behaviors of that kind. So we have already prepared for training, in-depth training for those teachers and those paraprofessionals.
Will kindergarten teachers be wearing the mask with the clear panel in the front since they are still learning letters and pronunciations?
We can do that. If they want it, if the teacher wants to do that, we have no issue in assisting with that.
Somebody's asking to explain Wednesday once more. So the A is Monday and Thursday. The B is Tuesday and Friday. Wednesdays will rotate on a weekly basis, A or B. There may be a month where, like, for example, I'm thinking of September, where there are 2 Mondays that we have off, therefore, that are holidays. Therefore, those Wednesdays would then be designated to the A because they would only have 1 in-person instruction day that week. So it really depends on the week. But there might be some more days where there might be some Wednesdays in a month where A's attend more because they had off on that Monday. How do we sign up for Genesis?
So you're going to contact your child's school. The secretaries in those schools will be able to help you get your Genesis parent portal account set up.
The next question is also a school-based question. Our daughter will be attending kindergarten. What will be the drop-off procedure? That will vary by school. The office hours for Jackson Ave, I'm assuming they're every school is 8 to 4. Is that right? Or is that no? What are the office hours for the schools right now?
The office hours are 2 days a week in person. And then they have their Google Voice set up on their emails and they respond to email every day, 8 to 4.
How do we sign up for the YMCA aftercare program?
So as soon as that information becomes available to us from the YMCA, we will gladly share it out with the parents. You can also contact the YMCA directly and they'll provide you with guidance. Typically, again, I'm only here 1 year, but typically they provide us with the forms and then we share them out.
How can I register my daughter on school bus services? I think there may be a misunderstanding, right? We don't offer school bus services.
So we offer busing services to those as mandated by law, and typically that's our IEP, students.
Ms. Bermudez is the next.
Yes, this question, I believe it's for the high school. When will registration for sports begin this year?
That's currently happening. If they have questions, they can go on the athletic department website or contact Mrs. Canestrino, who's been facilitating our family ID.
Esta pregunta se trata acerca de las registraciones para los deportes en la escuela secundaria. Si ustedes desean registrar a los niños en los deportes, ya las registraciones se han abierto. Hay que contactar a la escuela o hay que entrar al departamento atlético en línea en la internet y ustedes pueden registrar hacia los chicos con las formas o si no llaman a la señora Canestrino, que es la secretaria del departamento atlético en la high school.
Somebody's asking why, if you homeschool, they're not considered a Hackensack student anymore.
Homeschooling is a completely separate situation. It's different than any kind of virtual learning that we're currently doing. If you're choosing a homeschool as a parent, you're electing to pull your child out of the public school system and follow a separate homeschool curriculum that you're designing. So you're no longer a Hackensack resident. In this case, it is a little confusing because if you're choosing virtual learning as an option, then your student is still enrolled as a Hackensack public school student. They're just participating in virtual learning from home. But homeschooling is a completely separate situation. It's acknowledging that you no longer want your child to be participating in the public school and that you're going to be taking the responsibility to provide them with the schooling at your own discretion and expense. So it's a completely different model. It's not part of our virtual learning model. It's a separate situation.
Yep. So to simplify, if you choose the full remote model, it's our teachers. If you choose to homeschool, you're the teacher.
Will teachers who are going, Mr. Sapera, will teachers who are going to be teaching remotely be provided laptops and not Chromebooks? You're muted.
Sorry. We will be providing Chromebooks to all teachers. Laptops are just, unfortunately, it's a much bigger pull for budgetary reasons and just task and for management. Everything we use is Chrome based, Google based at this point.
The next question is for the high school, Mr. Montesano. Is 50% capacity realistic for the high school? I'm concerned about the number of students and staff inside the building, including the classrooms and the hallways. I know the classrooms have been overcrowded in the past. Will there only be 10 children in each classroom?
So it's a very fair question. What we've done is we've looked at each classroom. We physically measured to see, how many feet we can get, with 6 feet apart chairs and desks. Some classrooms we can get as many as 14, 15, 16, and some classes you can only get 6 to 8. So obviously we're going to be aligned with those protocols. The other side of that is, we don't really know the true numbers until everyone has kind of completed the survey. If I looked at the initial data so far, there's probably, 2 to 1 that parents are coming back, but there's also, 50% that currently say they're not. So until we have those numbers, we can't really balance it out yet.
Okay. Why isn't it an AB week schedule versus the AB days schedule chosen? I know there were a few reasons that we chose the AB day, but one of them was when we gave our parent survey and we had the initial parent survey, not the recent one, that a lot of, it was like 60 or 70% of people wanted the AB day. And then the AB week was the one that was least.
Oh, it was like 16%.
Yeah, it was very minimal.
And just for continuity purposes, not seeing a child in person for that long of a time is a long time. How do we make the decision without having the presentation from the individual school? I guess they want.
Yeah, I think if there are specific questions that you have that are going to, be required for you to make a decision, then follow up with your child's school administration to ask those questions, personally prior to the forum. I think, this is all rapidly changing and, trying to prepare for this has been adjusted. So I think we just, this was the week we felt comfortable that we had enough answers to be able to hold a forum like this. And I think, our schools are going to do the same. But if in order to make a decision, you have specific questions of your child's school that you need answered, I think that, following up with them is the way to go, so that you're not waiting for the forum to ask your questions.
And listen, we do recognize how tough of a decision it is. I can tell you, just looking at my screen right now, most of the panel members here, they have their own kids that attend their own different school districts, and they're all struggling with these decisions just as you are. So we do understand how it is a very tough and difficult decision. And we know how hard it is to make that choice. But listen, we all have to make the choice, because that's where we are, right now in this stage. The guidance that we had received initially from the Department of Ed was that by the first week of August, we had to tell people what our plans were. And, we're not, very much ahead of that, but we are a little ahead of it. So hopefully we bought you a little bit more time to make the decisions.
Are children going straight to their classroom as they enter the building? And how long will it actually take to get the kids in school to start a lesson if school starts at 8:40?
Yeah, and those are all conversations that we've been having about, staggering, entry and exit and screening procedures. I think it's at the elementary level, it's our hope that the lessons would be able to begin, timely after their entry, but we recognize that, an 8:40 lesson, if the kids are walking in at 8:30, is probably not going to happen. And we've been, discussing scenarios for how that might look, and, making sure that we can at least get instruction done within the first, started within the first half hour of kids entering.
Yeah, and we know the first few days are probably going to be a little challenging, but as people get accustomed to the routines, I think it'll go a lot quicker.
Uno de mis hijos tiene asma severo y su complicación de salud es muy delicada. Si se decide que el uso de las mascarillas ya no es necesario, ¿pudiera ser mandatorio todavía para los niños que están enfermos? So one of my children has severe asthma. What happens if at a later date it is decided that kids no longer need to wear masks in school? Would it be okay if kids who have a medical condition continue to wear masks throughout the school year?
Ms. Lamparelli, would you like to speak on that matter?
I think I answered that also in the chat, but at this time, masks are required, but of course that can change depending on the trends in our COVID cases and whether we have, an uptick, or whether, our global pandemic suddenly takes a good turn, meaning that we no longer have to socially distance and wear masks. However, at this time, we can't really say what will happen over the course of the year. We are, watching the trends daily. And as of right now, the children, if you could just start practicing with them, building some endurance, hopefully this will not be a long-term, issue.
En este momento no podemos responder esa pregunta. No sabemos lo que va a pasar durante el año escolar. Si en algún momento milagrosamente la pandemia da un giro positivo y no tenemos que tener este uso de mascarillas, es algo que podremos responder más adelante. Pero por este momento el uso de mascarillas es obligatorio, debe ser usado por los niños en la escuela, y es importante que los padres comiencen a usarlo en casa y tratar de hacer que ellos se acostumbren al uso de las máscaras para que puedan estar largo tiempo dentro de la escuela sin sacarse la máscara. There is another question. What happens if a student does not have a Chromebook from the district at this time because he originally said he had a computer at home? How will the student obtain a new Chromebook in school?
Sorry, I missed that question. Say that again. I apologize. It's the English portion, Diana.
So if a student decided they opt out for a Chromebook because he had a laptop at home, but now he's going back to the building, doesn't have a Chromebook, how does he obtain a Chromebook?
Well, depending on the grade, if it's a high school student, they automatically get a Chromebook assigned by the district. If it's K through 8, they will have Chromebooks that can be assigned to them, or it can be left in their class to utilize. Now, in the middle school, that may look a little different because We might have them in homerooms where a student can pick one up and take it, but we're still working those details out. We prefer that every student take a district device and have that available at home. If they want to use their laptop while they're at home, that's fine. But at least take that district device so you have it with you. The middle school is a bit of a different situation because of the fact that kids may be in different classes, depending on how the courses.
Entonces, el asunto de los Chromebooks o de las computadoras depende de qué escuela los niños estén. Si los niños están en escuela elementaria o lo que es kinder hasta el grado 8, ellos van a tener la opción de tener su Chromebook en la casa y también van a poder trabajar en un Chromebook en la escuela, ¿verdad? Así usted no desea tener el Chromebook en casa porque tiene la computadora, debe de tomarlo porque hay situaciones o de pronto algún programa o algún tipo de programa o software que no vaya a estar disponible en la computadora de la casa. Es importante que el niño tenga acceso y que tenga su Chromebook personal. En la middle school o en la escuela media esto va a variar, todavía no se sabe, se están ultimando los detalles acerca de cómo se van a accesar los Chromebooks en la escuela, ya que los niños en middle school ya empiezan a cambiarse de aula para recibir diferentes clases. Entonces van a darnos más información a medida que avanza el proceso. Y para los chicos que están en la escuela secundaria, ellos obligatoriamente todos reciben su propio Chromebook para que puedan estudiar desde casa. Entonces ellos todos van a recibir uno. Si usted de pronto no tiene uno, igual comunicándose con la secretaría de la escuela, puede pronto hacer una petición para poder tener un Chromebook si no lo tiene por el momento.
Thank you for that, Diana.
Will children at home for remote learning be live from 8:30 to 3?
Sorry. It's going to depend on the grade and the assignments from the teachers. In middle and high school, like I said, we have been planning to stream live instruction, which may require students to be on on live watching the instruction from that time. There will be assignments. The virtual instruction will look different than it looked in the spring. So there will be an expectation that kids are on for a longer period of time and obviously getting that full instruction, but it will vary depending on the grade level and what is developmentally appropriate for the younger kids in terms of being time in front of a screen.
The one thing is on the phase 1, that won't be 8 to 3. That would be the same hours that the kids are in school.
Kids are in school.
Mr. Sapiro, if an incoming 9th grade student has a MacBook Pro, is that device supported by the school IT infrastructure? Does it need to be quote unquote tagged for Wi-Fi access and mobile device management?
No, we do not allow devices from outside into the district network for security reasons and also for just management and being able to ensure that the device can access all the same resources as everyone else. Because we can push certain things to Chromebooks, obviously that a MacBook that's not managed by us may not be able to get the same settings for. So we do not recommend that. We will provide the 9th grader with a Chromebook to use at school and at home. If they prefer to use the MacBook at home, that's fine, but they will have the Chromebook available to bring to school.
When does phase 3 open? So phase 3 opens November 30th. And it's November 30th through January 15th.
Right. And of course, that's right now, right? Everything can change.
Agreed.
Ms. Bermuda, is this a question?
Yeah, this is just a comment. I believe the parent meant to write a question or it might have been cut off. So, si usted trató de escribir una pregunta donde dice mi niña está en 3er grado, no vemos la pregunta. No sé si solamente fue un comentario o pertenecía a otra pregunta. The comment just reads, my daughter is in 3rd grade. I believe it was part of a different message that we've already responded.
Okay. Where is the form located on Genesis that was mentioned earlier?
When you log into your parent portal account, it should automatically come up as once your login is accepted. If you're not able to locate it or you don't have a parent portal account, contact your child's school so that you can get set up or to just notify them that you're having difficulty accessing it. But my understanding is that once you log in, that should automatically come up as a notification for you.
What about the ninth grade orientation?
Great question. What we're planning on doing, we're currently working through it now. We're going to have a virtual grade 9 orientation with a tour of the building virtually. We're going to basically cover everything we traditionally cover in our ninth grade orientation, but obviously do that virtually due to the obviously current restrictions.
Somebody's asking if they can opt to send their kid in starting January 15th. I guess.
Yeah,
That'll be more details.
currently, yes, right, with ample notification, currently, yes. But again, everything's subject to change. So if somebody chose to go full remote right now, there's always going to be that opt-in window, and the deadline dates for those various phases, we're going to determine those. Currently, our opt-in date for the second phase would be September 30th in writing to your building principal that you're choosing to come back into school.
Will they give a computer for the kids in kindergarten?
Yes, that will be, if you need a device at home, we will be able to provide one, yes. For kindergarten, first grade, as well as pre-K.
And last question, pre-K 4, does the child go to the district school? I am a bit confused for ECDC, please inform.
It depends on where your child was assigned. So the assignments in the class list were just finalized 2 weeks ago, and the letters went out this week. So you probably would have not received it yet, but you will. And you would be able, that will let you know what location you were assigned to. It may be a district elementary school. It might be our, the ECDC, or Early Childhood Development Center, or it could be one of our 2 private providers, our centers that, we contract with. So the letters went out this week to notify families as to their placement. If you have a specific question or require assistance, our preschool registrar's name is Christine Tizio, and it's Tizio, CTISEO at hackensackschools.org. And if you email her, she can, assist you in figuring out where you were placed. But your letters should be coming soon.
There was a question that a student is transferring from Nellie K. Parker to Fairmount School. I tried to answer and then the question disappeared. The Chromebook that was issued at Nellie K. Parker can be used at Fairmount School. So at this time, we haven't collected any Chromebooks back, and they can be used in all the schools.
That's correct. And any students that left 4th grade are going to 5th grade would take those devices with them to 5th grade. 8th grade, taking them to 9th grade, would take them to 9th grade for now. Later on, at another point, when the 9th grade to 12th grade replacement devices come in, we will be swapping those devices in the high school level because that was already planned. We had planned to refresh the high school devices this year.
With parents returning to work full-time, what happens if the sitter is not able to log them in on the remote days? I think that would be taken up with your building administrator, and that's going to have to be done on a case-by-case basis.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was going to say the same thing. I think if you have a personal situation that's making it difficult for you to complete the work, you're going to follow up with your building administrator and teacher to determine, the best path to ensure that your child gets the instruction they need.
You guys got to get ready for.
And then somebody choose virtual for the entire school year. I believe at this point the answer is yes to that. And then Ms. Bermudez.
This question is the same as it was before. I'm just going to repeat really quick the answer for the parent. La pregunta, señora, si ya la respondimos. Su niña no tiene su Chromebook ahora en casa, pero ella le van a dar un Chromebook. Usted llame para la escuela, que a la niña le van a dar su Chromebook para que lo tenga en casa y pueda hacer las tareas. Aunque ella tenga el laptop, es importante que también tenga el Chromebook.
Diana, one thing is that I will be working with the principals with their communications out to parents to set dates that they can pick up devices, because I don't want to send people to one location if possible, because it's just going to be easier if we do it at the building, but I want to make sure we have an idea of when that will happen.
Ok. También el señor Cepero me está avisando que se va a trabajar y se va a coordinar directamente con los principales, con los directores de cada escuela, para coordinar los días donde los padres pueden ir a recoger los Chromebooks. Así que ya usted va a estar recibiendo también información acerca de eso por medio de la escuela. Yeah.
That's it. There's no more open questions at this time. Oh, wait. Oh, no. Yeah, this is a staff question. We're good.
Okay, all right, so let me share the screen again. So again, I would just like to thank everybody for their wonderful questions. We definitely appreciate, the questions. I think it was informative to us. Hopefully this presentation was informative to you. We also understand that, some of your questions may have been answered. So I've shared Ms. Melissa Sanzari Stevens' contact information. And if you email her, she will, direct those questions to the appropriate person. We can get answers for you. We look forward to continuing to share information with you as things develop. We will be putting this presentation online. Actually, I'm going to work on trying to get the presentation translated as well so that we can post that online. And I'll probably look to do another session in Spanish. I just don't have the date yet in the future for our Spanish-speaking parents. So with that, I'd just like to close and thank everybody for their participation. And I wish you all a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.